here.
Yay. Wow.
Very nice.
Most people are familiar. I think we have, Russell, you're a new member, aren't you? Maybe he's muted. Like to see who. We're doing good. Mary, this is 21st century for the Carriage Museum, huh?
You got it.
Oh,
I'm not sure I'd like to go back to the 19th century.
I agree. I'd like to be there right now too.
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
all with you.
Yeah. Oh, and Greg Calling, Ron Kladinsky, wonderful.
Done.
Nice. There we go. Fun looking at who's come on the call. Susan's here. And Tom, thank you for joining from Senator DeZoglio's office. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks for
That's-
having me.
Hi,
That's
Tom.
great. Please give Diana our best.
Hi, Susan.
I'll be sure to let her know.
Yeah, but
Yeah. Yeah. How are things going for you guys? This is campaign season.
Luckily, she did not have a Democratic primary
Wouldn't
challenge,
it?
so it's been a little bit of a more relaxed campaign season, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, we're looking forward to what happens in November, but I feel pretty confident right now. So
Yeah.
This is
Awesome.
not the one you want to be in? Okay.
So thank you for joining. This is the first time we've done a meeting like this. So
a
we're
virtual
all,
meeting,
pardon me?
a virtual meeting.
Yeah, with our, a working meeting like this with so many people from our community. So we're
Donna.
expecting maybe 60 people. So it's very different. Hey, and I see Bill Messmer.
Bill.
Hey there, everybody. I'm
Hi,
getting
Bill.
dinner,
Hey.
so I'm just letting you see my beautiful icon.
I wondered it. I thought for a minute there we had like, who is it? Mission Impossible actor. I can't remember his name.
Tom
I'm-
Cruise?
Who was that?
Tom Cruise or somebody
That's
else?
it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I look just like him.
Well, you
Hi,
do.
Donna.
Hi.
Thank you for that, though.
Wow.
Good
It's
afternoon.
wonderful.
Oh, Peter looks good. Look at him with those crazy earphones.
Yeah.
Hello, Margot. Thank you for joining us. It's hard to imagine this. This is crazy.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And Anya,
to
nice
join.
to see you too.
Hi, John.
Yeah, hi there. Yeah. Very impressed. Oh, and Barry Pastor.
Hello there.
Hi there.
Wait a minute. I know that guy. How's your son?
Which one?
Well, I don't remember. The one that was like
I have
5 years.
Aaron and Noah.
Your oldest. What's the names?
I got a lousy connection.
Oh, who's your oldest son? That's the one I know. He was in summer camp with me.
Who's talking?
Oh, it's Bill Messner.
Oh, I'm not sure. Whichever one it is, my son is fine.
Well, he must be about 40 now, something like that.
Yes.
Older.
Well, my youngest son is 39.
Oh, okay.
Or
I think
gonna
I
be.
know your oldest son.
Okay, that's Aaron. He's wow. Yeah, he's 40. about 46.
Oh,
Are
God.
you kidding?
What can I
Is
say?
Barbara
Time
going to be
flies.
with you, Barry?
I'm sorry?
Is your wife? It's Barbara, isn't that your wife?
Yeah, she's in the other room.
Okay. I hope she'll sit in on this.
I'll get her for you, John. How's that?
Okay, that's awesome. So I knew Barbara from my time at Strawberry Bank. She was the interpreter at the Shapiro House. And it was such a wonderful thing to know that they have an Amesbury connection. It's very, very wonderful. It's the glory of this museum community. Hey, Barbara.
It's right here.
Hi, John.
Hey, look, here we are.
One of my favorites.
How are you doing?
Good. Wish
Hey.
we were open again.
I know, it's heartbreaking, I'm sure.
It's horrible.
Yeah. I've seen Rodney a couple times, and actually
Been leading tours.
we had a Strawberry Bank loaned us some tables for a wedding we had here at our house. And it was a wonderful thing. It was great.
Mazel tov.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. So nice to see you. You'll have to come by Amesbury and see what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Hi, Barbara and Barry.
Hi, Carol. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you, even though it's Zoom. I'm scrolling through to see who all is here.
Yeah.
Wow. Kathy Stevens, you're impressive. Thank you for joining us.
Impressive because I logged on. Ha ha.
Yes.
Anyway, happy to join you. I love what you're doing. I love everything that you put out.
You are awesome. Keep that coming.
32. You have 32 people. That's really good.
Yeah, I think if everybody who said they're going to come comes, we're going to do 60.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
hi,
think-
everyone. I'm Meryl. And Bonnie had given me some questions just to ask the group while we're having our little social hour. So are there any people on the call right now who were born in Amesbury, always lived here?
Peter, probably.
That's two different questions.
Okay, born in Amesbury first then. I see Peter Hoyt with his hand up. You can you guys can all unmute yourselves during, before this actually gets started until 5:45. So besides Peter, anyone else actually born here in Amesbury?
Yes.
Was.
Pam Fenner's raising her hand.
Mayor Gove, weren't you born here in Amesbury?
Well, if you're an Amesbury native, you know that means at the Amesbury Hospital, and I was not born at the Amesbury Hospital.
What?
Oh, we're splitting hairs here,
Yes.
right? When you were like under a week old, did you
Yeah.
live in Amesbury?
I did. I was born at the Exeter Hospital, though, so I don't like to claim born here.
Okay. Because people do split hairs about those kind of
They do.
things. They do. Absolutely. That's wonderful. So what about people who have,
You're not an Amesbury person.
who just said that?
I did.
Yeah, but you weren't born here.
I know, and I was made very well aware of it.
What about people who have lived here for their whole lives?
No.
I have.
I have, Meryl.
So Peter, don't you live in your family's home?
Give me the water, please.
Yes.
Actually, Meryl, we live in a home right next door to where my parents' home stood.
Okay, I knew it was either in or close to, so.
Very close, yeah.
Yeah. How many of you have been involved with the museum since the beginning of the organization? Lots of hands going up.
Yeah.
Would anyone just like to talk about that a little bit? Please go right ahead and share.
Wait a minute, he has got two hands. I don't have to pick me.
Oh, he's the speaker, I think, this guy.
Hey, everybody.
Dan, hello there. Thank
How
you
are
for joining.
You bet.
My pleasure.
We're having a few more minutes of just social time while we're letting other people log on.
Okay, cool.
Meryl,
Yes.
Yeah,
one of the things I remember most fondly from the early days, the Amesbury Carriage Museum would have its annual meetings at Alliance Park, and they'd have potluck suppers or lunches with the likes of Holly Patton, Margaret Rice, Betty and Teeny Goodwin, Harriet Woodson Gould, and
Yeah.
plethora of other individuals, many of whom who have now departed. But I know that they would be celebrating where we are today. I know I can hear Holly Patton's voice ringing in my ears, and he always used to say,
You and me both.
yes, and he always used to say, the Carriage Museum's the thing. Well, while we've expanded to honor all the industries of Amesbury, I know that each one of them would be delighted that we are where we are.
I think Margaret, I remember Margaret or some of us saying that this idea for the Carriage Museum goes way beyond 40 years, maybe back into the 1940s. I know my parents and Margaret and people were talking about the importance of preserving that part of Amesbury's history. It's been a long time coming, but what advances we've made.
Peter, how many years did they do the horse show?
4 years, 1984, 85, 86, and 87, I believe. Might have the four wrong. And those horse shows and driving competitions took place rather in the town park and up Lions Mouth Road to the Woodsum Farm property. And honestly, we attracted over thousands of people to those events. It really was the golden age of this organization before John Mayer was welcomed on board. We're now in a diamond and sapphire age.
Platinum.
Platinum, that's right.
Thank you, Peter.
Oh, you guys can't have this, sweetheart.
So we're going to start with Dan in a few minutes. Is there anybody on this call that's using Zoom for the first time? Congratulations. Or is this just old hat by now?
Huh?
Oh, we have everybody that's used Zoom before, which is wonderful. Hopefully, did anyone have any trouble getting on? Or Susan, have you used the first time, Susan?
Oh, good.
No.
You want a couple pieces of corn, take it.
I'm okay.
Okay.
So as we get closer to introducing Dan, we just have a couple more minutes to chat, and I do want to remind everybody that, you know, when we do start the meeting, we want everybody to mute the microphone, and we'll find it if you hover over the screen in the bottom left.
I said it's that
So, or if you hover over your picture in the top right, you can.
Come on, let's go.
So you might want to even practice that right now, because I hear just people talking and stuff. I don't know who's talking right now, but top right, you can find the mute button, and everyone, let's see if everyone can figure this out. Top right, over your picture, you'll see mute and these three little dots. So just click the little blue mute thing and see if we can get everybody muted.
Okay.
Ooh, it's silence. Wow. Oh, no, not quite. We're waiting for George and Ann Verrett Speck and Dave Somm and Roy.
Ann is here.
To mute, please.
Sorry,
So, I think I will go ahead and do that.
And I just spotlighted our the screen on Dan Yaeger. Dan, it's very much a pleasure to have you with us on this very unusual annual meeting for the Carriage Museum.
Yep, my pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, this is, like many museums, new territory. I've been on board. This is actually the 5th annual meeting that I've been part of for the Carriage Museum. And every one of them has been, you know, kind of a prelude or prologue for what came after it. Last year, we had a speaker from the New Bedford Fishing Heritage Center. And it was just an excellent example of building a community project. And it came at a time where we were really just throwing ourselves into developing the History Center. And a year after that, here we are. It feels like we're really on the verge of something very special. We've have COVID, of course, to thank for a little edge to all of this. But, you know, in spite of that, it definitely feels like we're moving forward in a very, very positive way.
Absolutely.
So, Dan, I think we'll get started, but I wanted to say, you know, you are in a position where you are serving our peers, our colleagues in the region and the museum field. And you must see from museums small and large what the world is doing. And, you know, I think my hope for your presentation today would be to offer some perspective on that and perhaps some encouragement and validation for the things that we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Well,
So-
thanks. Yeah, if you're ready, I'll take it away.
Yeah, please do.
Well, first of all, I gotta thank you, John, for the invitation and everybody for being here tonight. It's, you know, as you say, a Zoom annual meeting is a little bit different. We're in the middle of our planning right now for our annual conference, which comes up in November, and it's all going to be virtual. And our annual meeting for NEMA is going to be virtual. So this is a little bit of a test for me even to see how it works out for you. But anyway, thank you all for being here tonight. In case you don't know what NEMA is all about, the New England Museum Association has been around for about 102 years or so. So it's been around quite a bit, quite a long time. And we currently are a membership organization that represents about 3,000 members from around New England. Museums that include everything, we say A to Z, art museums to zoos and so forth, and everything in between. And so history museums such as yourselves account for a little over half of our overall membership universe. It's about 53%. And then about 25% are art museums, and then all the other types of museums. So that's what we're all about. And just incidentally, I do live on the North Shore of Boston. I'm speaking to you from scenic Swampscott, Massachusetts, and I'm on the board of the Essex National Heritage Commission. And I think I just saw Anya might be on. Anya Wilczynski from ENHC. So anyway, I'm part of that, and I'm familiar with you all from both of those hats that I wear. So John asked me to talk about 3 things over the next few minutes, and I'll see if I can put those things all together and make some cogency out of it. He asked me to talk about the state of museums right now. What does the future hold? And maybe perhaps a few words of encouragement that I might have to offer. So I'll do my best to address these and hopefully have a little time for your questions as well. So the state of museums right now, I guess I would say, first of all, that even though museums come in all shapes and sizes, as I said, A to Z, I can safely say that there isn't a museum anywhere that hasn't been impacted severely by the current crisis. And actually by the current crisis, I mean a perfect storm of crises, specifically 3 of them. Of course, we have our COVID pandemic, which was sort of the first crisis to hit on, for most of us, it was Friday the 13th, and we'll remember that day for quite some time. And that was followed up very shortly with the economic collapse, which was very devastating. And then, you know, not too long after that, we had the crisis of very deeply and ongoing felt social unrest because of the George Floyd murders, but then, you know, ongoing ever since. And so even one of these would make operating a museum very, very challenging and difficult, but having to navigate all 3 at the same time is unprecedented. So that's, you know, really kind of the backdrop for everything that we're doing right now. over the last few months, I've spoken to more than 150 museum leaders in a variety of contexts, and I can tell you that almost all of them have responded to these crises in sort of a continually evolving way. I think the first phase for most everyone was the shutdown itself. As I mentioned, Friday the 13th seemed to be the day that most museums realized that there's no getting around here. We're going to need to shut down the museum. We're going to have to move our staff to working remotely. And that in and of itself was sort of a major logistical and emotional moment for folks, because as you are moving along with just sort of day-to-day operations, that in and of itself was really something that was momentous. And I have to say that I'm really proud of most of the museum folks that I represent, and that they really took very seriously the safety and health of their staff and their visitors as sort of the first thing. So there wasn't an awful lot of debate about do we shut down or not. It was just kind of a question of when. Phase two with most leaders was scenario planning. And I think this happened very shortly after the shutdown. We started recognizing within another week or so, it's like, oh my gosh, the economy's collapsing all around us. And so I think that there was a deal there where we began almost immediately to start planning out scenarios for what is it that we do? How do we actually anticipate surviving financially over an indefinite period of time? And so I know that a lot of folks were sort of planning for a few weeks of a shutdown, and how are we going to do that? That's not going to be too much problem. But then it became more evident that it was going to be a much longer term kind of a situation. So really understanding what our cash situation is, what our reserve funds, what cash is available to us, all of those things, assets that we have, that began very soon thereafter. And that was an important moment. And then I think, kind of another phase in this was then the reopening strategy. How do we actually deal with all of the uncertainties for reopening a museum, in the middle of this pandemic? And I think that that's been something that has been ongoing as well, as museums are still kind of ramping up into the reopening phase. And then of course, the social unrest that began with the George Floyd murders and the Black Lives Matter movement and the like. Almost every institution that I've talked with had some kind of a response to that. They needed to have actually just some sort of a statement of support of some kind, and that was a moment too. And I think that since then, many museums have been internally and externally involved with just sort of wrestling with how we as an institution relate to this particular moment. And it's created a, really urgent dialogue from that standpoint. I think several financial aspects have been in play. The good news in some ways is that the federal PPP, Payroll Protection Program funds that were available early on really kept museums afloat for the period really through the end of June, roughly. It was an 8-week program. Most every museum that I talked with applied for and received some form of funding, and that really certainly helped at least stem the tide a little bit and help museums keep their staff intact, at least for a period of time. I'll also say another area that I hope has been your experience as well, but I do know this is the case with a number of museums, is that their donors and their members and philanthropy in general has stepped the gaps in earned revenue that they have lost, the museums lost in the form of visitors and events and the like. It seems that a number of museums are reporting to me that their donors said, we'll do what it takes, we're going to redouble our efforts, and we'll keep you afloat as long as you need to be supplemented your income. And that's been a good thing. I know a lot of foundations have also, and grant funds have loosened up the restrictions on their funds to be able to use towards operations. So that's been a good sign. And I would say that the strength of the stock market has helped to support that philanthropy to some degree as well. The fact that, the folks' investments have been relatively stable has allowed them to come up with donated funds. So that's a good thing. But unfortunately, especially since the PPP funds have run out, many museums have needed to furlough and lay off some or all of their staff. So it's really been kind of an uneven period as well. Visitation, needless to say, has been really awful, frankly. Every month, NEMA produces something we call NEMA Stats, and it's a sampling of museums throughout the region to sort of get a sense of what their visitation has been. And our July statistics, that are the most recent statistics, is report that our museums have lost 91% of their attendance year over year, July 19 to July 2020. 31% of our museums are closed altogether in July. So as of July, so we still have, you know, a few that are coming back in sporadic ways, but 31% have closed altogether. And those that are in sort of tourist areas are especially hard hit. Those that are dependent on tourism are especially hard hit. And you can imagine that's, you know, sort of the Plymouth area, Boston, certainly, Freedom Trail, that type of thing. And we're very unsure when tourism is going to bounce back at all. Programs that museums put out, I will say that one, I think, really encouraging sign is that museums generally really quickly pivoted to online engagement with their audiences. They began a series of online lectures. Their education programs were really terrific, especially in the springtime when the schools were shutting down really quickly. And, you know, all of a sudden everybody was a homeschooler by default. I think museums really stepped into the gap and really helped with programs for families in their communities and the like. And then, of course, their programs are beginning to start to rebound with gradual reopening with the new protocols that they're putting in place, chiefly through time ticketing, mostly wearing of masks, there's sanitizer everywhere, social distancing, and so on. So those programs are starting to reemerge a little bit, but a very, very, very limited area. So that's kind of where we are now. What does the future hold? Well, first of all, I will say that the reemergence of COVID may keep us in a cycle of reopening and reclosing for the next year to 18 months. That's really the prognosis. And the way I liken it is that you know, it's almost like the circuses of old, the big top, you know, the circus would come to your town, put up the tent, and then, you know, fold up the tent, take it another, you know, somewhere else and put it up again. And that's kind of where we are, I think, in the field, is we're starting to anticipate that the resurgence of COVID might end up making us to, you know, gather that kind of a strategic reopening, reclosing over the course of time. Stock market performance is going to have a huge impact on philanthropy, so we don't know where that's going to wind up. Economic picture is uncertain. Online programs and audience engagement, I think, is going to be the norm from now on, even after we reopen. I think technology is going to play a much bigger role in museum strategic plans ongoing. And with regard to social justice and the anti-racism piece that's in front of us, I think personally that museums really don't have any longer have the luxury of remaining neutral. I think most communities, regardless of where they are going to demand progress and allyship with the cause. So that's something that I think most museums are really going to need to wrestle with very seriously and significantly. And then I guess the other piece of it for museum leaders in particular is that, you know, museum leaders, and that's both the executive directors and the boards and so forth, they're going to have to be needing very comfortable with embracing not knowing, the idea that we just do not know what's going to happen in the future. And this goes against our instincts, but, you know, the sooner we're able to sort of understand we don't know, we're going to have to give it our best guess. But, you know, it's that discomfort that we're going to have with not knowing that's going to be with us for some time. So words of encouragement, what can I say? Well, I think, first of all, museums and historic sites are an authentic part of every community in New England. As a matter of fact, New England has the highest per capita concentration of museums anywhere in the United States. And this means as a field in this area, we're always going to have a very high value in our communities, even if, unfortunately, not every museum actually survives in the short term. But as a field, I think, you know, we're going to continue to play a role in our communities. I think museums continue to be among the most trusted institutions in our society. And that's a good thing. It means we have the ability to, you know, sort of represent the truth and possibly counteract all of the polarization we feel right now in our civic engagement. So that's a really good thing that we need to bank on. And I think because of that, maybe the third and last point that I'd make in terms of words of encouragement is that we're in a great position to use our status as trusted institutions to leverage our social capital towards the greater good and social justice. So the idea of we're able to sort of speak the truth and so forth is very, very important. I heard something not long ago from a speaker talking about this social justice moment that, we need to have truth and reconciliation to really understand what racism has done to our society over the course of time. But he said there is no reconciliation without truth. And it dawned on me when I heard this is that history museums especially are at the center then of this debate. They're called upon, we all are, to re-examine how we reinterpret our stories of our communities, determine whether we're actually truth-telling, whether we're propagating the old myths and so forth. And so, it's kind of an exciting time in a lot of ways. We're at the center of this debate, and we really can demonstrate our relevance in our communities by involving our entire communities, including those folks that have been traditionally marginalized, by including them in this process. So, in some ways it's very scary, but we're in a good position too, I think, to really, flex our social capital to the greater good, maybe like never before. Anyway, that's my take in a nutshell. Thanks for listening. And John, if we have a minute or two for questions, I'm happy to take them.
I know we do have a couple questions at least. Dan, I just would say that, this totally resonates with our experience in Amesbury. We were hit very hard. PPP was a big savior. We haven't really gone out with an appeal to our community, but that is usually in the fall, and we're planning that. But we have been fundraising for the History Center, and support has come in dramatically to help that project along. You spoke to the two things that I feel are really important for the Carriage Museum. We have made a pivot to online, and we're learning our way to that. And I believe that'll continue to be a feature of what we have to do. And then overall, that point that you made about museums as trustworthy, as a place where people can find their way, they can find the truth, they can feel supported. I think that is a really important quality for what we're trying to achieve. And as a museum professional, that totally inspires me. That keeps the fuel burning, the fire burning, I guess. And I feel that validates much of what I'm trying to do.
Right.
So thank you for your comments. Bonnie, did you want to put forward a question? I think we have a little time.
Yes. So Dan, hi. I'm an employee of the museum part-time, along with Meryl. We both work for John and the board. So one question I have is, do you have any information or have you observed anything about how museums are trying to monetize their online offerings? Because, with the loss of, visitors and admission, it seems if this goes on much longer, we're really going to need to figure out how to charge for offerings, but not discourage attendance.
Right. Yeah, I have. I think that, what I'm seeing is the first couple of months was pretty much, let's just get information out there. Let's do, try to serve our communities the best we can. And that was certainly what we did at NEMA. We just sort of started pumping out content, didn't try to monetize it. I think that, I guess I would say that monetizing it has been sporadic, and I think that it's been very, very supplemental. I mean, it's almost been token in terms of what it actually represents to the institution, where you might have charged $60, $70 for a lecture, to attend a lecture in person. People are maybe getting, $10 or something along those lines. It's almost very, very, very token. I know in our case with our annual conference, we have normally charged $350 or so as a registration to get into the conference, and this year it's going to be, pretty much pay what you will with a suggested $150, that type of thing. So it's like the expectations for monetization is going to be a lot lower for everybody across the board. That being said, I think that what we do make up for the loss of immediate revenue perhaps is that we can expand our audience though online. So in our case, we're finding that a lot of the webinars and things, workshops that we've thrown that have, we've had sort of modest fees attached to them, but we've also had many more people attending, and they're attending from all over the country. So we have had a lot of folks from California, Texas, Colorado, and the like participating in our programming. And it's the same that I'm hearing locally as well for even smaller institutions. If your content appeals to people that are in a particular niche of affinity and they're located, wherever they might be, you've got an opportunity to attract them. So it's kind of an upside to the virtual event. So I would, as a strategy, I'd be looking at it as try to engage people as much as you can so that you have a big audience pool for when you do actually reopen and we get back to our, whatever the new normal actually is. But fact of the matter is that, the monetization piece, I wouldn't, think that it's going to be anywhere near what it's been in the past for you.
I've got another question for you. This is from Patricia Beckett. Do you see a movement for museums to collaborate and even merge?
Well, I think I've heard the figure. I don't know where exactly they came up with it. I think it was the American Alliance of Museums, the bigger umbrella group, that said that they anticipate that 30% of museums are actually going to close because of the crisis. And I think that, those that are actually facing the question of do I go out of business completely, or do I reconfigure how I'm going to look in the future? Part of the considerations would in fact be with merging with another institution, before you actually go out of business completely. I think that it's it's a strategy that I always encourage people to undertake, to look into. It's easier to talk about it than it actually is to do, given the cultures of institutions, boards, and EDs, and whatever, to actually merge things. But so I wouldn't call it a movement. I'd call it something that that's a best practice if you're in those really dire financial straits. It's been going on, for example, over the last few years, especially with the trustees of reservations that have been sort of merging, and I mean, you might call it an acquisition of different properties around, around Massachusetts, like the Fruitlands Museum is one in particular that they took over. The Cordova Museum is another one. So, it works out very frequently to folks' advantage, but they're difficult to put together for sure.
Thanks, Dan. So we have a question from Kathy Stevens. Dan, do you see a movement from annual membership dues to a monthly subscription model?
It's a great question. I think that, memberships are kind of transactional anyway, in a sense. They're not straight out donations where, a donor just gives you the money and says, I mean, sometimes there's strings attached, but it's pretty much, here you go. We're supporting the museum. Memberships are always, I'll pay my, $30, but I expect to get a newsletter. I expect to get, sort of priority seating at an event or whatever it is you offer. I think that it's a model that's always challenging to museums to sort of not have the tail wag the dog in some ways. Having the monthly subscription idea is even more transactional, perhaps. What I am hearing is there's maybe a move afoot to have several levels of memberships that add to a VIP membership that adds a little bit more value if you give a little more money. And that's, I think, typically in the development realm, folks are, talking about the ladder of giving. You start out as a member showing, some commitment and interest to the museum, and you try to move those folks up into higher levels of donor status. And that's not going to go away. I think that the strategy of sort of getting people to move up perhaps a little more incrementally based on their membership is the way it's going to go. But we have seen where memberships like philanthropy have stayed somewhat stable, which is a good sign, at least in the short term. People are still, committed to the institution, and even though they can't actually visit the institution, they're allowing their memberships to stay intact. So that's a good sign for museums.
We only have time for one more question because we've got to wrap up and move to the next part of the agenda. From Greg Calling, and I'm actually wondering, John, if this is more of a question for you, but he's talking about the news of the remains of a slave ship in the Merrimack River. And is there an opportunity for the museum to illuminate this history, to begin a community discussion in relation to the Black Lives Matter movement?
I'll say a little bit, Bonnie, but I also think that this connects to some of Dan's comments as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already started to partner with the Custom House Museum and a little bit with the Museum of Newburyport. So I think, you know, there definitely is an opportunity for there to be a shared effort in this regard. And it would be interesting if Lowell's Boat Shop could get involved as well. You know, with our youth and family group, there was some exploration of what were, you know, the first peoples of Amesbury, but also, you know, what's the experience of people of color in our area. And, you know, with the Whittier home and his work as an abolitionist, I think there is just a pretty good group of people who are thinking about this, and it would be an interesting thing to bring people together. Dan, I don't know whether you have thoughts or comments about it.
It is precisely the kind of thing that offers itself as an opportunity for you, and you know, it's a way to attach to this this very, very important discussion in a very tangible way. And you know, it's not just abstract and the like, but you can engage people in you know, sort of a very timely conversation using that as the anchor. I don't want to put Anya on the spot, but I do know that ENHC, Essex National Heritage Commission, we've been talking a little bit about this issue and, you know, potentially supporting organizations in the area with, you know, just how to deal with some of this and, you know, how to craft some responses to this. And, you know, so it's something that I'm hopeful that in the course of time we can, we Essex Heritage can, you know, help organizations in the area get their hands around it and, you know, make a very cogent and positive programs out of some of these opportunities.
Dan, I'm a commissioner, so I look forward to working with you on that.
John, you better get moving on it. Though.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Dan Yaeger, this has been awesome.
Good.
I appreciate you joining us on our first ever virtual meeting.
Yep.
You know, who knows if we'll be doing it again, but this really has been an excellent beginning for our program. I think you've offered some really helpful perspective, and I'll say thank you to you, Dan.
Excellent. Thank you. Great to be here. Good luck, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, awesome. And I've got a little plug here for Dan. If people are interested, you can go to the web. NEMAnet.org is the website for the New England Museum Association. And I encourage you to look into becoming a part of that community.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you
very
much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
So we're going to move to our business portion of the annual meeting. And welcome. This is when we do the work of just sharing what's news with the Carriage Museum. I'm going to turn it over to Tom Pendergast. Tom is sitting in for Krista Rocky, who's under the weather this evening. And Meryl, I wonder if you found Tom and you can spotlight him. I can't hear you.
Well, I am trying to find Tom, and he was here and he is not on the call anymore.
Oh, he is. We got him. I'll spotlight him.
Okay.
There is Tom
All right. Hi,
Pendergast.
Tom. Sorry about that.
Quite all right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the to this. We feel badly that Krista Rocky is not here to take over and run this meeting, but we'll do the best we can. First of all, I would like to. I think Dan's talk was excellent, and I don't think there was a more timely subject that could be discussed given all of the things that are going on today. There are a few things we need to go through. One thing that I want to mention is the passing of Director Emeritus Betty Goodwin last week. I would refrain from saying anything more because I think Peter Hoyt is probably the most appropriate person to discuss that. But that Betty certainly was an institution of Amesbury, and she'll be badly missed. She was a great friend of the Amesbury Carriage Museum as well. Moving on, there's a few things that John and I touched base on this morning. One of the things is that with the annual meeting is just to briefly go over our vision and mission of the Carriage Museum. And our vision is a community inspired by Amesbury's history. And our mission is to champion the history of Amesbury's industry and people. And I really think that we have to thank Mary Chatney and John for as far as nailing down the mission and expanding our view that it goes far beyond carriages. Even though they're an extremely important part of Amesbury's history, they are not the entire story. Also, we want to touch base on our goals were to, number one is to develop a physical location with exhibits supporting school programs. And this is one that is actually well underway with the construction of the Industrial History Center at Mill 2, and that's very exciting. Number two is make participation with the Amesbury Carriage Museum desirable, active, and fun. And I think Dan touched on that point as well, that's critically important. And three is to build an organization that meets the national standards of history, national standards for museum operations, and the fact that we want something that we can be extremely proud of. And it's also, given the fact that these are goals that end up with the year 2020, it's going to be on the board's list of to-do things is to update the current list and to move forward. At this point, I would like to introduce the board of directors and the officers of the Carriage Museum. As John had noted, Krista Rocky is president. I serve as vice president. Courtney McLennan as secretary. Mary Chatney is our past president. Peter Doyle is our acting treasurer. I have to thank Peter Doyle for his continued support. Peter was on the board for a while and left about a year ago, but has since continued to support us as acting treasurer, and his help is extremely, well, it's valuable and it's also very much appreciated. As far as the board of directors, number one, I have to say that our board it's diverse, it's talented, and it's committed. And the board also, it includes Pat Boylstein, Maris Totola, Peter Hoyt, Susan Kozo, Tom Murphy, Joyanne Reynolds, Peter Cease, and Janice Valverde. And as noted on the screen, that both Tom and Janice joined just in this past year. I also want to put a plug in. If anyone would like to serve on either a committee or the board of trustees, it would be great. We're always interested in more hands as it makes light work. And so if you are interested in any aspect, to please contact either John Mayer or any of the members of the board. And that would be great. I also have to mention the staff here. John Mayer is executive director, Bonnie Brady is program and campaign assistant, and Merrill Goldsmith, our newest addition as far as curator of online programming. And if it wasn't for the staff, we would not be where we are today. John has just been an incredible source of, encouragement, endless energy, and vision. And Bonnie Brady has just done an incredible job between a great being a creative person and a hard worker. And so Merrill, you've got a lot of things to, you've got a high standard to live up to. But again, the staff has been incredible. And let's see. Do we have, does anybody have any questions at this point? Are we good to move on to the Finance Committee report?
Tom, I think we can move on.
Okay. Well, as Vice President and a member of the Finance Committee, we have a little report here for the Finance. As you can see, the finances are listed July 31 at the end of our fiscal year last year and then this year. And as it's noted, if you look under our assets and exclude the campaign account, we actually have about $7,000 more in the bank currently than we did a year ago. There are factors for that. That's a good sign. It also comes as the result of grants that we've received, most notably the $12,000 grant from the PPP loan. Also, what's noted under current assets back from July is nearly $300,000 towards the campaign account. And as John had mentioned, the success we've had with that has been excellent, and we still have some more ground to cover. And again, Peter Hoyt will talk about that. As far as looking back at the year, 2019, we really felt that we made great strides. We went forward with the Industrial History Center, with our open house in February. But last year was a great year, and we were looking forward to just a wonderful year coming up this year. And of course, as mentioned earlier, COVID struck in February, and then by March, we had suspended all of our activities. And at that time, basically earned revenue stopped. We had our membership funds, and that was it as far as revenues from programs ceased. John and the board took action. Our costs are fairly low, and then John lowered them even more by reducing his pay rate. We applied for and received funds from the PPP, as well as we received the grant from the CARES Act and the Essex County Community Foundation Emergency Fund. Our current status at this point is to pivot from in-person programs to online. John has done a wonderful job with that. Is that there is weekly communication that goes out via e-news, whether it's through the newsletter or postings on Facebook as well. Our concerns are continued lack of programming revenue, as there will be none for the balance of the year. And I think it's very appropriate to listen to Dan Yaeger's discussion as far as what he would recommend and what the Amesbury Carriage Museum has done, and the effect that we have created the position of curator of online programs in an effort to make sure that the interest and the membership that we had gained over the past 4 or 5 years remains constant, and we don't want to fall out of the public eye. We need to be constantly out there advertising ourselves and in the programs and the services that we can offer. And our current challenge right now is to find a way to generate revenue and to build audiences. And again, this is where Merrill is going to be so very important. And I think it was very interesting that was a focal point of the future that Dan Yaeger had mentioned. Heading into 2020, 2021. We're going to assume that we're going to be virtual or at best hybrid for the foreseeable future. And then we certainly hope that the Industrial History Center will be available in the spring of next year. And as that opens, we will gradually grow into and activate that space. As far as keeping ourselves physically viable, we are going to continue with our established routine of fundraising. In the early winter, we'll have the annual fund, and in January will be the membership and sponsorship drive. And it's very important that, again, as Dan had mentioned, that it's very important that everyone continue their support to the Amesbury Carriage Museum for us to continue and to move forward. Going back to the balance sheet that was on there, that we had shown that there is our balance or our level of unrestricted funds is pretty constant between last year and this year. And that is very promising to us and gives us great confidence in the fact that we'll be able to withstand the current situation and move forward. And again, unfortunately, there's no program scheduled for the balance of the year as we roll out the end of the year and basically concentrate so much of our efforts on the construction of the Industrial History Center. And that concludes my report. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Tom, thank you. I actually do have a couple programs that I'll mention as we get towards the end of the annual meeting.
Okay.
But, thank you for your report.
And at this point, what I would like to do is pass the meeting over to Peter Hoyt, who's the co-chair of the Capital Committee, and he will talk about that. So thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. I come to you this evening actually with my fellow co-chair, Greg Jardis, and offering this report. And before I begin, I do want to say that it's astounding as I look at the heading on our agenda. This is the 35th annual meeting of the Amesbury Carriage Museum. So as Pam Fenner, I think, mentioned, yes, this effort has been underway for quite some time. And Tom, in terms of your very kind words about the passing of Betty Goodwin, Betty was actually my first cousin once removed. She would always make sure that I said that the right way. And my wife, Patty, and I had the good fortune of having her as our kindergarten teacher. As most of you already know, my cousin Betty was a legend, an icon in this community, and she did pass on the 5th of this month. Betty loved all things Amesbury, and she was particularly enamored of the effort to establish an Amesbury Carriage Museum. So I know that she's delighted knowing where we stand as we look forward to the Industrial History Center at Mill 2, which will celebrate not only the Carriage Museum, but many of the rich industries that make Amesbury the fine city that it is today. But I am pleased to report that the campaign for the Industrial History Center is moving forward with great success. In fact, since our first donation in November of 2018, we have raised over $640,000 in gifts and pledges. Who would have ever thought it? Just an incredible figure. We forecast, as Tom was sharing our finance report, we are forecasting expenses of $740,000 for our complete program. We're organizing our final push to raise the remaining $100,000 that will be needed. Given our past success, I'm extremely confident that we will reach that goal. Some highlights since our last annual meeting, probably one of the most significant events We were awarded a $120,000 Capital Facilities Fund grant from the Massachusetts Cultural Council and Mass Development. This is a very prestigious award that provides validation of the quality and importance of this project. We've received major gifts from individuals and businesses, and I think it would be very important at this time to recognize these donors for their generous gifts in excess of $25,000. Amesbury Industrial Supply and its owner Greg T. Jardis, Dan Healy, the Bailey family, Jay Gould, Tom Pendergast, Sherrill Enterprises, Inc., Gould Insurance, owned by Matt Sherrill, Mary Alice Arakalian Foundation, the Institution for Savings, and the Newburyport Saving Bank. And there are many others who've supported the campaign at a variety of levels. A complete report is available on the ACM website. You know, it's incredibly humbling to remember where we were and to recognize where we are, thanks to the overwhelming support from our community. Currently, we're preparing for our groundbreaking ceremony that will serve as our final push to the community. We'll be reaching out to our members and supporters for the first time, and we have developed a thoughtful way to acknowledge gifts from $50 on up to 5- and 6-figure gifts. Everyone is invited to support this project. My personal thanks are extended to the campaign committee, my co-chair Greg Jardis, Krista Rocky, and Tom Pendergast, with enormous support from Bonnie Brady and our executive director, John Mayer. And at this time, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce to all of you our executive director, John Mayer, who will share images of our progress. Thank you.
Peter, thank you. I appreciate that very much. So I am going to share the screen. I've got some photographs that just give you a sense of our project, our progress. Let me see it. It's not working. I'm going to unshare the screen and see what's going on. Technology. Let me see if I can make it happen here. Oh, here we go. So the History Center will be located in what's called Mill Number 2. It's a building that was built in 1825. This is a view of the complex with Mill 2 from a map of 1880. Here's a view about 100 years later, looking through the counting house arch of what was one of the operating plants for the Bailey Company. So it's nice that we've made a connection with the Bailey family, and we'll be developing our space in this building. And for those who walk the mill yard, this is a very familiar view of what the backside of Amesbury Industrial Supply looks like. Here's an image of the space. It's taken probably in November of last year. Greg Jardis and the team at Amesbury Industrial Supply worked hard to clear it out. And then that allowed us to begin our work. This is from, I think, a view in June when we started to put windows in. And who to think it, but one of the great accomplishments was installing our rough plumbing and making a connection to the sewer line in the mill yard. It was something that took a little while to figure out. And then most recently, framing is going up in our space. And as that happens, we can really begin to see what that building is looking like. Have recently received some playful renderings from a cartoonist. He's created this view of the exterior of the mill yard. So you can see the plaza that we're planning, a canopy over our space, all kinds of activity. And inside, you know, a multi-purpose space with flexible use for programs and exhibits and a variety of different events. And as Peter Hoyt had indicated, we're very excited. The fundraising has done very well. We're about to launch our public phase of the campaign, and we'll soon have an event that will showcase more of what we're planning. So I'm going to pivot to the museum report, and there'll be an opportunity for people to ask some questions. But I'm a little bit worried, you know, we had tried to keep our time to about 6:30 and we've gone over. So let me just turn to the museum report. And, you know, what I guess I feel most enthusiastic about with all the work that's going on is the emergence of a organization, a community-based organization with just a increasing number of people who've gotten involved. You know, Dan marked the date, March 13th, when organizations began to close down. Carriage Museum board, committees, work groups, volunteers have continued to play a role in keeping the organization alive since that time. I actually keep notes of every meeting I've been part of, and I ought to count up the number of Zoom meetings that I've been to. Some days they start at 8 in the morning and they end at 8 at night. And other days, you know, it's just 1 or 2. But it is humbling. It makes me feel so proud of what the Carriage Museum is accomplishing with the enthusiasm and involvement that we see from our community. And if you haven't, you know, I would invite you to take a look at the 2019 annual report. We just posted this on the website. And if you scroll through that, you can see the number of people who are involved in our different committees, people who, you know, the Industrial Survey Team, our most recent committee, the Youth and Family Committee, who were responsible for Family Day and now doing programming for this early industries event. It's wonderful. I think we all are disappointed that we're not seeing each other in person. I celebrate those times when I'm in town and I see my friends. I am delighted that we were able to get the number of people that we did online for this meeting. And now with Meryl Goldsmith involved as curator of online programming, I know we're going to continue. And even when we do begin to move towards more in-person events, I know these online programs are going to be a hybrid of the kinds of things that we offer. And I guess I would just invite everyone who's part of the organization to keep the conversation and dialogue going about what you'd like to see and how we can serve you better. And then lastly, I guess I want to say the Industrial History Center continues to be an inspiration for me. As I explore more and more what our opportunities are going to be, I realize that this is a unique opportunity. The adjacencies that we have with Amesbury Industrial Supply, with Flatbread Pizza Company, with other nonprofits in the community and in the region. I think the Amesbury Carriage Museum is going to benefit from being in a place where we can really connect people together. And just as Dan Yaeger said, I think the Industrial History Center will be a place for everybody. It'll be open, it'll be engaging, and it'll be participatory. And I think those will be benchmarks for our success. So I've got a couple things I'm going to show on the screen here, if I can do that. We do have a couple events that are scheduled. On September 24th, there will be a virtual groundbreaking for the Industrial History Center. That's just a week and a half away. So you'll be seeing messaging from Bonnie and Meryl and I about that event. And then on Saturday, October 17th, the program that our industrial survey team has put together, focusing on the early industries of Amesbury, it's going to be a very fun event. It'll have 2 parts on that Saturday. One will be a virtual tour of the Powell River, and I'll be leading that. And then starting at 12:30 in the afternoon, we'll have a series of presentation about the industries that were part of the Powell watershed. I'm going to take any questions if there are. I don't know, this is awkward. It's hard for people to interact here, but if people have anything they'd like to ask or questions you'd like to raise before we get to the final segment of our program, which may be all that you're waiting for is the drawing of our gift certificate from Cafe Molise. But I wonder if there's any thoughts, comments, questions from our participants.
Bill Messner here. Hi. Hi, John. Can you hear me?
Yes, who's that?
So the question I had was, there's actually quite a bit of outdoor space next to the Industrial History Center. Are you planning to have some outdoor exhibits, interactive exhibits that people could participate with?
Well, Bill, that's a really good question. We haven't put those plans in place yet, although I will say we will continue to use the counting house, that storefront.
Yeah.
And I do also really appreciate the fact that we're adjacent to the amphitheater. So I think even if we can social distance, we can offer some outdoor programs. But you're asking a really good question, and I'm not sure I feel ready to give you that answer.
No problem. Just curious. I think there's an opportunity there at the appropriate time when.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll mention one thing that gave me quite a bit of joy. And this was some trust that was put with me by the board of the Amesbury Carriage Museum. We've just engaged a designer. His name is Keith Ragone, and he's a colleague who I worked with for many years in the Philadelphia area. Keith is on faculty at the University of the Arts. He has his own studio where he does design work for museums around the region. So Keith is going to be the person who's playing a role with the Carriage Museum and our construction group as we start to develop the History Center. So what you just asked, Bill, is something that I feel very comfortable talking with Keith about. All right. One other thing I thought, I didn't say this name, but they're both with us on the call. Greg Calling and Justin Williams from Merrimack Design Architects. I think, thank you, Greg and Justin, for your work, your vision, your faith in what we can accomplish, and totally look forward to seeing this space come to be. All right. So if that's all we have, I think my wife was here. We have a drawing. My wife, Deborah, who is a big supporter. We have the names of participants. So Deborah, if you want to dig in there, hopefully you have to be here to win. So we'll see who the lucky winner is. Anya Wazinski, are you still with us? Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yay! Well, Anya, you will be receiving a $75 certificate for dinner at Restaurant Molise.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Thank you.
These people are wonderful contributors to the Amesbury community. That's where we've had our annual meeting before in the past. And so I think you'll get to enjoy some good food next time you come to Amesbury.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity. On behalf of Essex Heritage, I'm so grateful to have this organization as part of the heritage area.
Yeah. Well, I'm thrilled that you're here. Last year, Annie Harris was with us as well. So please say hello to her. And it's a treat that Dan's joining the board.
Yeah. I'm really grateful for that too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, if there's no more business, I guess shall we take a motion to adjourn the 35th annual meeting in the Amesbury Carriage Museum?
John, I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion
I'll second that.
All right, awesome. 3 cheers to everybody. Now we can really begin our cocktail hour. Thank you all.
Whoops, people.